Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I want to welcome everyone back. I hope that you had a good break, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continue to bless all of you. I want to commend Riyadh for taking the initiative to set up tonight's program. And I want to congratulate really all those who step up to decide to make a presentation. I know how difficult it is to sometimes speak in public if you have not been doing any of this. And sometimes also people can speak at work and they can speak on different things, but to speak on Islam, it's sometimes a little bit difficult because you require two prerequisites. One is you have whatever you say, you have to be accurate. And two, you have to also be practicing whatever you are advocating. So it's not an easy thing. And so I want to congratulate those of you who have decided to take the initiative. I really admire your taking that initiative, and I hope all the others will be inspired to hopefully do the same in a future session, inshallah.
Before we get started, I just want to make sure. So I asked for volunteers, and we had volunteers. And back in December, I picked the topics tonight, and with no rhyme or reason, I assigned them to various people. But as Imam Naseeb was referring to, I picked topics that could be like factually based, so people can easily research it and present it within 5 minutes. So it's nothing too in depth. The purpose was, to get people in the practice of doing some research, doing some speaking for 5 minutes, and just to build that comfort level and learn something that they may not have learned before, and then convey that knowledge to someone else. So presenters tonight will be myself on behalf of Sister Fariza. We have Sister Narina, my son Hamza, Sister Samantha, Sister Amal, Brother Omar, and Sister Camille. So those will be the 7 presenters. And again, these are on various topics. So tonight, our first topic that I'm doing on behalf of Sister Fariza is on Ausiya bin Muslim. She was the wife of the Pharaoh. So I'm just reading Sister Fariza's notes right now. So Ausiya, she is the wife of the infamous Pharaoh or Pharaoh that's mentioned in the Quran. She was a courageous woman, willing to die for what she believed in. She chose the next life over the luxury of her current life. The Prophet ﷺ mentioned her as one of the greatest women of all time. Despite being married to the worst human being, she was a woman of perfect iman. Hadith Bukhari says, many men reached perfection, but none among the women had perfect iman except Maryam, alayhi salam, the daughter of Ausiya. Many men reached perfection, but none among the women had perfect iman except Maryam alayhi salam, the daughter of Imran, and Ausiya, Pharaoh's wife. Pharaoh, known as the greatest tyrant of all time, oppressed the children of Israel under his rule. Ausiya believed in Prophet Musa's message and believed in one true God, even though her husband, the Pharaoh, claimed to be God. She lived in wealth and luxury and had access to power. She lived in a palace, but knew the palace she wanted to reside in was in Jannah. Pharaoh ordered his guards to kill her because she believed in Allah as her true God. In Surah Tahrim, verse 11, Allah preserves her dua. My Lord, build for me with you a house in Jannah, and save me from Pharaoh and his doings, and save me from an unjust people. So there's some lessons that can be gained and learned from Ausiya's story. The first being, we must have the courage to do what is right and know that Allah is with the just person. Secondly, if you are in an oppressive relationship, seek help from Allah and take a step forward in asking for help. Thirdly, Iman is an individual struggle. Ausiya was married to the worst human being, yet she had perfect iman. Fourthly, She had put great sacrifice to stay on the right path. For example, like giving up a great job offer because it has some aspects of haram in it, or staying away from certain friends because they are a bad influence. And fifthly, having trust and reliance in Allah. In Surah Al-Imran, verse 160, Allah says, "If Allah helps you, there is none to overcome you. And if He abandons you, then who is there to help you after that? In Allah, the believers should place their trust." So that from Sister Fariza is a quick biography and history of Ausiya, the wife of Pharaoh, who was one of the great women in Islam, according to Hadith. So I'd like to thank Sister Fariza for putting this together, and inshallah you will be feeling better quickly. And that brings us to the end of the first presentation. So now we will move on to the second presentation, and that will be by Sister Narina. So Sister Narina, your turn to present.
Okay. Hi, Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Today I'm going to be presenting a brief history about Bilal. And I believe, and I hope, so everyone has their own perspective of life. However, when we read about Bilal, one can truly understand the meaning of hardship, calamities that he has encountered throughout his life. Bilal's journey through Islam was not easy. He endured the most horrific torture. He had all odds against him and still went on to becoming the first person to call the Adhan. The story of Bilal reflects the teaching of our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that no one is better than another due to their social status, education, or financial rank. The true believers are the best of people, those who attain impeccable characteristics, behaviors throughout any difficulties in life. For the rest of his life, he devoted every breath in his body to serving the message of Islam and being by the side of the messenger. That's part one. My second part is the history of the Adhan. The Adhan is the call to prayer. It is the sweet reminder to unite, humble ourselves, and be unified in the remembrance of Allah. In other religions, trumpets and bells are their calls to summon worshippers. But in Islam, it is the sweet harmony of a human voice that brings us together for worship. As Muslims, we are grateful to meet with our Creator 5 times a day. And from the time of Bilal becoming the first muezzin, caller of the Adhan has been called faithfully for over 13 centuries all around the world. The Adhan is one of the greatest signs of Islam in its sunnah. And I guess you listed here are some of the mannerisms we should practice when we hear the Adhan. We should show respect and listen to it until it ends. Repeat the words that the caller is saying. During the Adhan, ask for forgiveness and make du'as between the Adhan and the Iqamah. And to know that the Adhan is an invitation to Allah's forgiveness and to benefit from it. And that's it.
Okay, thank you very much, Sister Narina. And in the notes, I'll be sending out before the weekend, inshallah. I'll have some more details because everyone gave me notes that have a little more detail. I just sort of condensed everything into one slide to fit everything onto one slide for tonight's presentation. So thank you very much, Sister Narina. You can relax now. So next up, we have Hamza. And that's my son, Hamza. So Hamza, if you can go ahead and tell us about your topic.
Hello. This is 5 Muslim inventions that were very instrumental to the development of society as a whole. Start off here with algebra. It was invented by Al-Khwarizmi during the Islamic Golden Age. It has been used to advance technology and science today. Algebra was made in the absence of modern day calculators. You know, you couldn't just, you know, take a calculator, put some numbers in it, some equations, and you get whatever you needed to. So the fact that Al-Khwarizmi invented algebra, which was a very effective and accurate way of making mathematical equations to assist in complex and lengthy calculations, was very instrumental and was very important to the very important thing that he made. And algebra is still being used today. It is aided in building everything in the 21st century, from big skyscrapers to long bridges, and it's being taught in schools so other people can learn it. Next, universities. This was invented by, well, not invented, but either were formally established by a Muslim princess of the name of Fatima al-Fihri. Universities were around before this, but Fatima al-Fihri created the real first degree granting university. And even before this institution was established, mosques and masjids were already learning centers where the Quran and the Hadith were being taught. However, this institution came into existence when Fatima and her sister received a vast inheritance upon the deaths of their father and brother. And so she decided to help the people in her community and create this place of learning where they could go and study whatever they wanted to. And students were able to reside on campus. They didn't have to pay any tuition fees, and they received free food and accommodation allowances. And the students themselves were not limited to learning religion, and they were allowed to expand over the years to fields like medicine and astronomy and law, with a keen focus on more natural sciences. And then the next invention, very important, hospitals. These were established by Harun al-Rashid in 805. And first one that he made was in Baghdad. And these hospitals served a lot of purposes when first made, obviously first being treatment centers, recovery wards, and also retirement homes. And these places would treat those suffering with various ailments, but also give them more insight into a field that was generally limited at the time. So they would be able to learn more about the medical field and what exactly was wrong with them. And these institutions also had great lecture halls where medical students were able to learn from the experienced doctors at the time. Next up, something I'm pretty sure we all use nowadays, early in the morning, coffee. And this was allegedly invented by a Muslim Ethiopian man named Khalid. And the story goes that one day while he was tending to his goats, they became livier after eating a certain berry. And he boiled the berries, and this produced the first coffee. And from the highlands of Ethiopia and Yemen, this berry produced a dark drink, which first began to be used by the Sufis, who would use it to stay awake all night in order to pray his salah. And as time went on, the tradition of roasting beans and putting them in hot water to produce the bitter drink, which would double as an energy boost, developed and became known as coffee. And originally, the Arabic word was kahwa, which turned into the Turkish word kaif, and then the Italian word cafe, which then became the English word coffee. After the drink began to be consumed popularly, specialized coffee houses began to open around the cities of the Muslim empire, such as Damascus, Cairo, and Baghdad, where people would come in and they would drink coffee all day. The drink only came to the Western world after an Ottoman merchant brought the drink to London in the 17th century. And from there, coffee sprang to Venice, Italy in 1645, and to Germany in 1683. Coffee houses were also very popular in the American colonies during the time of the Revolution, and some scholars today attribute the cause of the Enlightenment to coffee, because all of these great minds would meet up in coffee houses to discuss enlightenments and all that. And the last invention here is the camera. And this was invented by Ibn al-Haytham. And the camera itself wasn't invented by him, but the optics and the function behind the camera were developed by Ibn al-Haytham, who was a very respected scientist. And without his research in the field of optics, the modern day camera would have been impossible to develop. He's seen as the first scientist to discover that when a small hole is made into the side of a light-proof box, light rays from the outside are projected through the small pinhole into the box and onto the back wall of it. He discovered that the smaller pinhole aperture was the sharp. He discovered that the smaller the pinhole was, the sharper the quality of image, which ultimately gave the ability to produce very clear images. This discovery of al-Haytham led to the invention of modern-day cameras, and without his research into how light works, the mechanisms behind a camera would not exist.
Okay, thank you very much, Hamza, for your presentation on the five of the Muslim inventions. There's a lot more, but I asked him to pick 5, and these were the 5 that he chose. So thank you very much, Jazakallah khair. Next up, we're going to stick with the youth movement, and we have Sister Samantha, who is going to do her presentation on the Hijri calendar. So Sister Samantha, you can go ahead.
Hi, Assalamu alaikum. So, did you know that the Hijri calendar is considered to be one of the 4 major calendars currently used worldwide? The Hijri calendar is the official calendar in Saudi Arabia. We are currently in the year 1440 AH as opposed to the Georgian calendar in which we are in 2023. The Hijri year refers to our Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, migration from the city of Mecca in the city of Al-Madinah in 622 AD. So how did it start? The Hijri calendar is made up of 12 months dictated by the moon cycle. Khalifa Umar ibn al-Khattab is considered to be the creator of the Hijri calendar. After all the discussions, complaints regarding the manner, important dates and events were being documented, Khalifa Umar announced that the year in which the Prophet Muhammad migrated would mark the beginning of the Hijri calendar. The calendar would begin with the first of the month of Muharram and end with the month of Dhul Hijjah. Consecutively, 622 AD, the year of the Prophet's migration, became the first year in the Hijri calendar. In the Quran it follows, "Indeed, the number of months with Allah is 12 lunar months in the register of Allah from the day He created the heavens and the earth. Of these, 4 are sacred. That is the correct religion, so do not wrong yourself during them, and fight against the disbelievers collectively as they fight against you collectively, and know that Allah is with the righteous who fear Him." The sacred months are 4 of the 12 months: Dhul-Qa'dah, Dhul-Hijjah, Muharram, and Safar are considered. They are called the sacred months because of the prohibition on war during these months. These are the 12 months and their importance that make up the Hijri calendar. Muharram, one of the sacred months, it is the first month of the Hijri year, given its name, forbidden, because fighting is forbidden during it. Safar, the second month in the Hijri year, apparently named Safar because Arabs used to loot the houses of the enemies after defeating them in battle, leaving nothing behind, 0. Rabi al-Awwal and Rabi al-Akhir. These 2 months coincide with the spring, as well as coinciding with a period when those victorious in war could enjoy their new possessions seized in the previous month of Safar. Jamad al-Ula and Jamad al-Ukhra, coinciding with the winter season, these 2 months were named because of the water freezing. Rajab means respect and honor. Shaban, apparently named for the crossing of journeys the Arabs undertook in search of water whilst going into war. Shaban follows a month of abstinence from violence during the previous month of Rajab. Ramadan, named for the high temperatures because of the summer sun, and it is traditional fasting month for Muslims. Shawwal, due to being the seasonal birthing season for camels, which would normally raise their tails in this season. Dhul-Qa'dah, named after the Arabic word for sitting. Dhul-Qa'dah is a holy month where Muslims must sit out or abstain from war, although it is permissible to defend yourself if attacked. And lastly, Dhul-Hijjah, the last month of the Hijri year, during which the Hajj pilgrim occurs. And that's everything for me.
Thank you very much, Sister Samantha. Very good job. And again, all these a little more information in the notes that I will email out to the group. So our next presenter, and I saw her joining the class, is Sister Amal. Are you there, Sister Amal?
Yes, I am. Assalamu
Okay.
alaikum.
Welcome, salam. So Sister Amal is doing the life and story of Ibn Battuta. So go ahead, Sister, and enlighten us.
Well, thank you. This was an adventure for me to learn about it. I learned so much, and mashallah, now I understand why 6-page was very limited. So thank you for condensing this. It's helping me a lot. Otherwise, I'll be going further. So I know I have 5 minutes, so here I am. Yeah, so this is the life and story of Ibn Battuta, who was born February 25th of 1304 in Morocco, at Tangier. He was an explorer, geographer, a scholar. He wanted to travel. His first destination was Mecca, to do a Hajj. He was 21 years old when he started off. He traveled in 3 different continents and in over 40 countries. He met royalties and elites. He spent 8 years in India, as you can see, as a caddy in the court. Sorry about that. In the court of the king, the Sultan of Delhi. He has been known to be called actually the Muslim traveler, and also the man who walked across the world. To this day, he even went further than Marco Polo and Chinese traveler called he. He has been married to a few wives along his traveling, who he's been doing for 30 years. And he's all in his travels. He's stayed in India for 8 years, stayed in Maldives for 3 years. He went through many cities in those 40 to 44 countries. So there's a lot to say about him. He died at the age of 65 years old back in Morocco, where he was born. He was very well educated, and his family was all scholars and judge. That's why he had been asked to be advisor, counselor, judge as well throughout his travels. He died of the Black Plague in 1368. Now, there's a fun fact. There's so much more for you guys to know. He traveled to Morocco. He started in Morocco, but he went to Saudi Arabia. He went to Yemen, Egypt, Tunisia, even China, the Maldives, as I mentioned earlier. But the list goes on. I was like, I want to go there. But there's a fun fact to share with you guys. There's actually a mall, one of the biggest mall, themed mall in the world, that is located in Dubai, on his name. It's showcasing cultures and architectures of 6 different countries that he has visited. I thought that was pretty fun. He was very pious. He would read the Quran sometimes twice a day. And even though he had been attacked through his travel and almost died, what saves him is to pray. And that was a big point for me. He was even imprisoned for over 3 years. And what saved him was, again, the fact that he was very, very pious. One notion that I wanted to share is he did not care for China at all. So that was one of his least favorite place to visit. There's so much more, but I think I'm going beyond the time already as it is.
Well, that's okay. If you have some more, you can share it with us.
Yes, actually, what you see on the map is all the continents that, I don't know if you guys can see clearly, but all the continents and the country that he has visited, including what they used to be called the Islam Spain, which is what we know as of Spain today. Another fun fact is because of some German and English scholars, that now his story and his legacy has been known. Even though if he had traveled up to 10 miles further than Marco Polo, he was very ignored by education throughout the world, but the Islamic world. That's now it is getting to be known, and he's a subject of a lot of investigation in the sense of research and knowledge to be shared about what his story has been. He throughout his travel, he had we're going to call it his assistant nowadays, called Shusai, who was the one writing all his adventures and experiences. And that became a book that is known as the Traveler's Book. There's another name, but I'm getting nervous. I don't remember the name of the book. I'm sorry, guys.
That's okay.
But it's yeah, Josiah. Let me get it here. Yeah, his helper was the one who did the travelogue. So what we call nowadays vlog. But,
Okay.
yeah, so this is
Okay.
This is what it is. I'm going to find in the book and I text you.
That's okay. Well, I'll give you 1 minute because you shared a story with me earlier about your father and how I randomly assigned these topics. So you can take the next 30 seconds or a minute and just let the class know what you discovered while you were researching Ibn Battuta.
So the name of the book is The Travels of Ibn Battuta. But yes, so as I was a young kid, my dad used to tell me stories and stories of a worldwide traveler. Now my dad, Allah passed away, but we talk about stories that he heard when he was a kid, and he passed it on to us. And he kept saying all those stories of those adventures and travels of this man called Shamsuddin. And turned out that Ibn Battuta's nickname is Shamsuddin. All my life, I heard stories of Ibn Battuta without knowing that my dad was talking about him. So it was a shock to me, and it was a big smile on my face when I said, wait a minute, I don't know any Shamsuddin, but this name rings a bell. Like, and I keep thinking, who could it be? And the more I read about Ibn Battuta, the more I realized that my father was speaking of him and his adventures. My father being, from Yemen. So that was amazing.
Yes, thank you. Yes, thank you very much for sharing that. I found that quite interesting that
yeah.
through doing this, you discovered that you've been hearing stories about him all your life and never realizing it.
MashaAllah, it goes to show how Allah does things. You assign me this story and it's like, it's amazing.
So, okay,
Thank you.
Jazakallah khair, Sister Amal. See, that wasn't that hard.
No,
So now we'll move on to our next speaker, which is Brother Omar. Let me just pull up his slide. And Brother Omar is going to speak about dowry as described in the Quran. So go ahead, Brother Omar.
Hello, assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
Walaikum salam.
My topic today is dowry as described in the Quran, and the term for dowry in Islam is mahr, which is simply described as the obligation, whether monetary or something owned, given from a groom to the bride. And there's an ayah in the Quran from Surah Al-Nisa that says, "And give to the women whom you marry their mahr with a good heart," which means like that Muslim men should be willing to give the mahr, and it shouldn't feel like an obligation that you're unwilling to do, because it's like an obligation on you, and you should be willing and like dedicated to giving it. Once married, the mahr belongs solely to the bride. It's not supposed to be taken by the groom back afterwards, nor should the money be used. If it's land or any property given, the groom should not try to take it back or claim it as his, because it's solely the property of the wife. It's also noted that extravagant and excessive mahrs are looked down upon. The Prophet, peace be upon him, said, "The best of marriage is that which is made easiest, and the best of mahrs is the simplest or most affordable." And there's a very big difference, or not a big difference, there's a difference between dowry and mahr, which is that mahr is legally required for all Islamic marriages, while dowries are optional. Historically, dowries are a traditional thing, while mahr is an Islamic thing. Dowries are traditionally given from a bride to the parents of the groom, while mahr is given directly to the bride. And it should be noted that due to similarities in the concept, it's common that the phrases are used interchangeably now, but historically that hasn't always been the case, and mahr is the Islamic term for a dowry. And that's all I have for the topic.
Okay, thank you very much, Brother Omar.
You're welcome.
So brings us now to our last presenter, Sister Camille. And I purposely left this topic for last because the previous topics have been historical and Islamic in nature. This next topic is more modern and current with times, and it's an issue that I think that I picked it because I think it's a topic that people should be aware of, and Sister Camille is going to do a very good job now in bringing it to your attention. So let me just bring up the slide, and Camille, you can go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum. I wanted you guys to take a minute to read the headline here before I get into it. I think we as Muslims, we believe in the oneness of Allah. We believe that our religion has been perfected for us. So when we hear of people coming into Islam, we hear people turning to Islam, for us, it seems like a natural transition. It seems like, common sense. What people, of course, are going to turn to Islam. And it is estimated that Islam will be the #1 religion by 2075 if the numbers continue the way that they are. So we will face obstacles as we grow as a community. We will face the obstacles that a lot of people face whenever you grow in popularity, and that people will oppose your growth. So while about 100,000 people estimated leave Islam annually, we don't hear that side of it so much. So therefore, we really have to educate ourselves as to why people would want to leave Islam. We need to protect our future. We need to educate ourselves. We hear all the time about, we hear non-Muslims who spew rhetoric, hate, at Muslims, and we hear this, but what we don't hear is why there are people who are born into our religion. Why would they leave? And so today I'm going to talk to you about ex-Muslims. And what I want you to be aware of, that ex-Muslims are, who are they? They're people who were raised as Muslims, or they converted to Islam and then later renounced Islam. They are an organized group, and I think that that's very important for you guys to be aware of. They are organized. They are a nonprofit here in North America. They have a registered 501c3. They, like I said, they're an organized group. Their mission is to raise awareness on human rights and challenges for ex-Muslims. It's also called apostasy. It started around 2007 in Germany, but it is global. It is in North America. It is in Nigeria, in places in Africa like Nigeria. There could be others. There's South Asia, Pakistan, Bangladesh, India, Maldives, Sri Lanka, but there are others, and they are very organized. Their vision statement is, this is a quote from their website. We envision a world where every person is free to follow their conscience. And their mission for ex-Muslims, or ex-Muslims of North America, advocate for acceptance of religious dissent, promote secular values, and aims to reduce discrimination faced by those who leave Islam. And I pondered about showing the pictures that you see here, because while it is about some of the human rights and protecting of people who could be persecuted otherwise, they're also anti-Islamic, and they do have anti-Islamic propaganda. So you see some t-shirts here, examples of some of the things that they sell. It's propaganda. So why would people want to leave Islam? There's a couple of things here. So they feel that they're stereotyped by believers as sad, confused, they're immoral, they're attention seekers, they're lost people, they're influenced by evil forces. They feel that the hijab is oppressive. They feel that it's very patriarchal. The reasons really do differ from culture to culture. Here we see some of the reasons that I found on their website. There's doubts about Islam, that they are not welcomed in Islam. They question inequitable treatment women. They question the intolerance of the LGBTQ community. They view that Islam is backwards, oppressive. They also may have had bad treatment by other Muslims. And they also tend to dismiss the historical and some of the contemporary views of Islam. So we could probably spend an entire class on ex-Muslims, what they believe in, what they're doing. I mean, they're probably not the only group that's out there that are anti-Islam, but I really need you guys to be aware of this, because a lot of this raised my eyebrows when I did the research. I didn't realize that there were actually organized groups around this. So I do have a call to action for everybody. And what can you do about it? First and foremost, know your Quran, know your Hadith, know your religion, understand Sharia, understand the laws of Sharia, why the laws are the way that they are. Once you understand that, you've educated yourself as to why we practice our religion the way that we do. Okay. also understand what is culture and what is fard and sunnah. We've talked about this many times in the various classes. Some things are culture and they are specific to that country or those laws. So culture is different, as you all know. Imam Naseeb has talked many times, than what is fard and what is sunnah. Also, there's some studies that you can read. I put some of them there. Take the time to read it, do the research. The better that we can educate ourselves as Muslims, we can grow, number one, we grow a better understanding of our religion. And when we are faced with questions, either from somebody who is an ex-Muslim or somebody who, you know, maybe they just want to know more about our religion, you know, and there's no hidden agenda. They just want to understand more. We have that knowledge. So I want to leave you with that. And thank you very much for the time. And assalamu alaikum.
Okay, wa alaikum assalam. So I'm going to turn things over now to Imam Naseeb, because we've spoken about ex-Muslims, Dowry, Ibn Battuta, the Hijri calendar, those 5 inventions, Bilal and the Athaan, and Sister Ausiya. So I don't know, Imam Naseeb, if you have any comments, anything you wanted to add in regards to the topics that were presented tonight.
Well, my heart is warmed by listening to these beautiful presentations. And I want to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give you more and to bless your effort, inshallah. It's truly inspiring to listen to all of you, and I hope others would step forward as well. And the topics that were selected are topics which give us a very good variety of different things which we don't normally hear about. So I just wanted to make quick comments on some of the topics. So Ausiya, one of the horrible things was that, you know, she brought up Musa alayhi salam when he was a baby, and the way she decided to expose her faith to Pharaoh was, there was a hairdresser who professed her faith, and Pharaoh began to torture that hairdresser, killing her children. And when Ausiya heard of it, she said, you know what, I should not be shy. If this hairdresser can come forward, and I will do the same. And so she professed her faith to Pharaoh, and he used to take her to the desert and starve her, and they would laugh at her with the other daughters. And so she went through a very hard time. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless her. Bilal, as the sister mentioned, beautiful story. Bilal actually also not only gave the adhan, he was also the treasurer for the Baitul Mal. He was in charge of the finances as well. And when Bilal began to give the adhan, there were some people who objected to him and said that he was pronouncing it not correctly. So they went to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and they complained and said, you know, Bilal is saying the word shadu like in a very different way. It's not coming across correctly. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam silenced them and said, you have now learned a new way of how to pronounce this. And so that ended the conversation right there. Bilal was a very highly respected companion of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And as the sister mentioned, the rewards for giving the adhan is tremendous. And the adhan itself is an amazing thing. One of the things that we use to take out jinn from people is the adhan, because when you give the adhan, the shaitan goes to the furthest point of where the adhan is heard. And so when the adhan is given, the jinns and the evil spirits, they have to go until they can't hear the adhan. So a lot of times when we want to test if someone have a jinn, we would usually recite the adhan in their presence, and the scholars would look at how this person is reacting when the adhan is being recited to them. In relation to the inventions, alhamdulillah, Hamza did a remarkable job. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you to do more. You know, there actually was an exhibition in England that has, and it's a website, 1001 Muslim Inventions, that displays, and he eloquently really explained beautifully these 5 inventions which he chose. The Hijri calendar, there was just one small point. The 4 sacred months, Safar is not one of them, it's Rajab. And so the calendar is really important. It allows us to have the varying seasons. And so Ramadan comes time in summer, sometimes Ramadan comes times in winter, and so on, because we have 11 days less from the regular calendar. the dowry in Islam, it's very important. In fact, last weekend I had a conversation with a brother, and he was objecting to us using the word dowry because it gets misunderstood. Because as the brother mentioned, usually sometimes dowry is referred to where the bride pays the husband's family some money in order for them to marry the girl. Whereas in Islam, it is the husband giving a gift to his wife. And from the many different hadith, we learn that it doesn't have to be a physical item. In fact, in the time of the Prophet ﷺ, you had Salam, who, Abu Talha he was a non-Muslim and he wanted to marry her. And she said, well, the dowry will be your shahada. And then the Prophet ﷺ, another time, he asked a brother who had nothing, and he said, do you have some verses of the Quran memorized? The brother said, yes. He said, well, that will be a dowry. So it's not so much the item itself, but the idea that I will take care of this sister, that I'm expressing my love from the very beginning. But the dowry, as the brother mentioned, has to be agreed by both people. And it should be something reasonable. What is happening in the Middle East right now? They have set the dowry so high that the young boys can't afford the dowry. Like in Libya, for example, the dowry is like 10,000 US and more. And so a lot of the brothers are going and marrying non-Muslims because they can't afford to collect that money to be able to marry their Muslim sister. And so it has become a real problem. In some countries, in Pakistan, for example, they now limit how much you can give for the dowry because it became so bad that people were going into debt to first get that dowry. Families were living in debt because they couldn't find the amount of money that was being specified to dowry. I personally did a wedding here in South Florida, and the dowry was $250,000. So it varies, and it's based on what the two people agreed on. In terms of the ex-Muslims, really there's a lot of money being spent to promote anti-Islam and Islamophobia. And a lot of these people, they also get an incentive. There's the 100,000 Muslims who leave Islam every year. We now have also the other statistic that about 100,000 accept Islam. So it's around 23% leave, 23% accept. So we're kind of like treading water. But they have a lot of people like Hersi Ali and so many of them. They get a lot of money from people. But the points that Camille mentioned was very important because we have got to really present Islam properly. One of the problems we have the best product, we're the worst salespeople on the earth. And so, especially in some countries where there is this, lack of understanding of how we need to treat people who are not Muslims, and even our own Muslims, the way we treat them, if they just do a misstep, we are so harsh. Whereas the Prophet ﷺ said, Yassiru wa la tu'assiru, make things easy for people. Don't make it difficult. So unfortunately, due to ignorance and the way we are emotionally connected to Islam, not ideologically, we're not doing it from an intellectual point of view. And so sometimes we do this stuff that these ex-Muslim claim, and there are many of it is very true, in the way we treat people who don't live up to what we think is enough standard. And so you have these terrible, that's why honor killings and all of that occurs as well. And so it's really beautiful to have listened to everyone tonight. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless all of you. One of the best ways to learn about Islam is to teach it and to share it. So in closing, I just want to mention very quickly that each of us should try to practice. When you come out of Jumu'ah, see if you can summarize it to yourself. Because the way if you know something is when you practice it. One thing about Ibn Battuta was that he didn't make any journals. He didn't write anything down. As Amil was saying, he actually narrated to his friend Ibn Juzay, who actually wrote down the stuff. So his memory was incredible to have remembered all of those places that he'd been, and then narrated to his friend who wrote it down. And then later on, it actually got buried. And then it was the Germans and the English scholars that actually brought it back to the fore, and it came to the fore. So, alhamdulillah, so practice public speaking and communicating is a learned art. And so always try to practice, whatever you hear something about Islam, see if you can articulate it and share it to somebody. You know, when you share anything like tonight, those people who share tonight, anything we benefit from it, they will get the reward until the day of judgment. And if I mention something of what I learned tonight from you guys to somebody else, you get the reward for that as well. And it continues without diminishing anybody's reward. Allah bless you all. And I'm very, very happy. It really warms my heart to listen to all of you and the beautiful articulated presentation that I heard tonight. Assalamu alaikum.